Hello everyone. Today we're going to be working on the circulatory system. We're going to break this up into two parts. So we'll do part one is kind of all the different types of circulatory systems and the way they're set up and all that kind of good stuff. And then part two is all about the anatomy. So it's all about the structures and the ways that it can go wrong. So let's start with the first part. So this is part one of the circulatory system. So with this circulatory system, the main function of the circulatory system is to move substances to and from cellular neighborhoods. So it's to carry stuff to all the cells and then pick up any waste products and carbon dioxide, things like that, and take them away from those areas. So the blood is used as that transport medium. Blood typically flows inside tubular vessels under pressure generated by a muscular pump known as the heart. Hopefully this is some review for most of you guys. Blood makes exchanges with the fluid and tissue spaces between cells known as interstitial fluid. So whenever we talk about interstitial fluid, we're talking about the fluid that's basically kind of coating around the cells that's in between each of the cells of your body. So the interstitial fluid exchanges the substances with the cells. It acts as a middleman between the blood and the cells, and it's functionally inseparable with the blood. So basically, as the blood's traveling down, it's got all the nutrients and everything dissolved within that the plasma of the blood. When it makes it down to the capillaries, the plasma basically oozes out of those capillaries. The capillaries keep in all the red blood cells, white blood cells, all the larger particles, but all the liquid oozes out into that interstitial area, and it bathes those cells in the oxygen and in all the nutrients where they can take it all in, and they drop off all their waste products into that interstitial fluid, and then it flows back into those capillaries and then gets picked up by the veins and gets taken away. This is kind of a nice little diagram for that. So the blood comes in, comes to these capillaries, the liquid flows out, goes across into around the cells, bathes them, drops off what it needs, picks up the waste products, and then gets reabsorbed on the other side of the capillary bed, and again gets taken away by the venules and the veins. We have two different types of circulatory systems. We have the open versus the closed. Open circulatory system is found in most mollusks, all arthropods, so it's typically an invertebrate type of thing. And it's where basically the blood doesn't stay within blood vessels the entire time. It kind of bathes around the body tissues, kind of flows wherever it needs to go inside of the body, and then makes its way back. So the heart has like an input area. So in this diagram we have like a lobster. So it has an input area down here near the gills. So the blood is pulled into this part, the heart pumps it out up to the head, towards the arms and towards the tail, and then the blood slowly makes its way back to that input zone. So once it leaves out of this main pumping area of the heart, it kind of just flows generally to the directions where it'll be picked back up. So kind of like the circulatory system, or kind of like the circulation of the air within your house. You have an input area where the air comes in to your heater and air conditioner, gets picked up, and then that air conditioner disperses it to a bunch of different places, and it slowly makes its way back to that input. So this is kind of the same idea. Closed circulatory systems means it confines the blood within blood vessels in the heart at all point in time. So the blood doesn't leave unless there's some kind of damage. So the blood travels fastest in the larger diameter vessels and then slows as you get smaller and smaller and smaller until finally you hit the capillaries. The capillaries are actually so small that red blood cells have to line up one right after another just to fit through. So it's very tiny, but that allows for all the blood, all the interstitial fluid to exchange and gives it time for all that process to occur. We have, so here's an example of a fish, so of the different types of systems that we have in the vertebrate system. So fish have what's called a single circuit system. So it's just basically with a two-chambered heart and it flows in one direction. There's just one circuit. So it goes heart, gills, body, heart, all in the one single circuit the entire way. So it goes to the gills, picks up the oxygen, drops off the carbon dioxide, then travels to the body and then directly back to the heart. So it goes from the heart to the gills and then directly to the body without returning to the heart. So this is a single circuit system. Amphibians made a step up where they created a double circuit system, except this system kind of has a flaw. It has it has two tracks, so it does send up to the lungs and then out to the body, and has the heart connecting the two. But then when it comes to the heart, the two types of blood mix. So the blood coming back from the lungs and the blood coming back from the body both mix within one ventricle. So they're kind of a mingling of the two systems. So you got it right here in the middle here. You can kind of see how we go to the lungs, pick up oxygen, come back to the heart, but then that blood is mixed with the same blood that's coming back from the body that's oxygen's been used out. So it's fairly inefficient as far as the system goes. So this is for your reptile or amphibians and some of your reptiles. And then we kick it up a notch. And then we move into the most advanced of our circulatory systems, which is found in birds and mammals. And it is a complete circuit system, double four-chambered heart, completely separated for the two circuits. So it travels to your lungs, back to the heart, and then out to the body, and then back to the heart, and then out to the lungs, and back to the heart. So the heart is that intermediate in between, and it separates the blood so that they don't mingle, intermix, and you don't get that inefficiency. So you can see it there on the right hand side. So you can see the blood comes in on the right side of the heart, and goes out to the lungs, and then comes into the left side of the heart, and then out to the body, and then after the body comes in the left side, back out to the lungs. So we got this double circuit: one circuit for the lungs, one circuit for the body. Now you notice I'm saying this is the right side of the heart, and this is the left side of the heart. Right? It's how when we talk about the heart, when we talk about any of these anatomical structures, we're talking about how they sit within the body. Okay, so you have to look at it as if there's a person facing you right here. Right, and so it's their right hand side and their left hand side. Okay, so it's going to be opposite from your left and right when you're looking at it. You're going to need to know that, right? Because I'm going to ask you some questions that's going to kind of involve that. And if I ask you, does the blood come in on the right atrium or the left atrium, and you tell me the left atrium coming back from the body, then you're going to get it wrong. Okay, or if I say which one is this, you're going to have to tell me it's the right atrium. If I ask you to label it, if you label it the left atrium because it's on your left side, you're going to get it wrong. So make sure that you think of it as if the person is looking at you. If that heart is in someone's body, as if they were looking at you, and what side of the body is it for them, okay? So think about it that way. If you have some questions with that, shoot me an email. I'll try to send you some figures to help it out. But otherwise, I think you can pretty much get it that it's as if it were in somebody's body and they were looking at you. Pulmonary circuit. Whenever we see pulmonary, think of lungs. All right. So the pulmonary circuit is how that blood travels to the lungs and then back. Okay. So the blood leaves the heart. It's oxygen poor because it's come back from the body. It's entered into the right side of the heart. It gets pumped out to the lungs, and so it's oxygen poor because it's going to the lungs to get oxygen. It's carbon dioxide rich because it's going there to drop off the carbon dioxide. So it flows from the right half of the heart to the lungs. So it comes in the right side, it gets pumped out, and it goes to the lungs. In the lungs, the blood gives up the carbon dioxide, picks up the oxygen, and then returns back into the left side of the heart. Okay? Now, let's see. So for the systemic circuit, the oxygenated blood is pumped from the left side of the heart. So it's just come back from the lungs. It's pumped from the left out to the tissues, goes to the tissues, drops off the oxygen, picks up the carbon dioxide, and then returns back in the right side of the heart. All right, so there we go. All right, blood is a fluid connective tissue. So we talked about this back in our tissue section, our animal tissue section. It is in that connective tissue category because you have a matrix with all the little cells inside of it. It comes from the same stem cells that bone do. So it's in that same category, right? So it's still a connective tissue. It's used to transport oxygen, nutrients, and other solutes to the cells. It carries away all the metabolic waste and secretions. It helps to stabilize pH and body temperature, and it also helps provide a highway for your immune system and for your hormones to go through. So it does a bunch of different things. Blood is extremely important in your body. And it's composed of plasma, platelets, red blood cells, and white blood cells. We got 4 different components of blood. So you're going to need to know these 4 components. Cells and platelets in the blood arise from stem cells in the bone marrow. This is, again, why they're all considered part of the connective tissue. And the stem cells is basically just an unspecialized cell, and they can become a bunch of different things. There are about 4 to 5 quarts of blood in the average human being. That's quite a bit. So here's a nice little picture. You can see our red blood cells. You can tell them because they look like a donut, except the hole's not quite all the way through. You got our white blood cells here, look like little balls of cotton. You got our platelets, which are basically little pieces of blood, or little pieces of cells that have kind of flaked off, and they're used for clotting. So with our plasma, about 50 to 60% of the blood's total volume is our plasma. It's composed 90% of water. Transport medium and solvent for all the different stuff helps to dissolve glucose, oxygen, vitamins, hormones, all those things, and carry it within this plasma. The red blood cells, also known as erythrocytes. Make sure you know this word, right, and that it means red blood cells. I'm going to ask you about these special terms. So erythrocytes is the technical term for red blood cells. Right, they're biconcave discs, so they look kind of like a donut, except the hole's not all the way through, that transport oxygen from the lungs to the body and then carry carbon dioxide back. Right, they have hemoglobin to bind the oxygen molecule, so hemoglobin is that substance inside the red blood cells that carries the oxygen. And remember that mature red blood cells have no nucleus, right? They have no nucleus inside of them, inside of your mature red blood cells. So therefore it kind of starts a timer for them, so they only live about 120 days. Once they hit maturity and start going and doing what they do, they only live for about 120 days. And this is so that they can basically pack those cells with as much hemoglobin as they can so that they can do their job of transporting oxygen as efficiently as possible. White blood cells are known as leukocytes. And leukocytes function as housekeeping and defense. Right? So they are your immune system. All right, so white blood cells differ in size. We got a whole bunch of them. When we get to the immune system, I think in the next set of notes, you will learn all about these different ones. But we're going to leave it till then. All right, basically, most of them devour anything that's non-self, and they help to signal any kind of threats and take care of your body. Platelets, on the other hand, are part of megakaryocytes. Right, they shed cytoplasmic fragments called platelets. They drop them off, so basically they shed off these little pieces, and these little pieces last for about 5 to 9 days within your blood, and they help to clot the blood. So they go around, and whenever you have a bleed or something, they're one of the components that help to stop that bleeding. And we have some disorders that come along with these. All right, so anemia just means you have too few deformed red blood cells. So your red blood cells aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. You got hemolytic, where you're basically your blood is dying for some reason, so your red blood cells are lysing or exploding or dying for some reason. Most of the time, this is caused by some kind of toxin or poison or venom from an animal. So you got venom from animals, you got toxins from all kinds of poisons, like rat poison, things along those lines. You can have sickle cell anemia, where your red blood cells sickle. They basically fold in half. It's a genetic disorder that makes them elongate and kind of fold, and makes it so that they can't travel through the capillaries very well, and they tend to cause clots throughout the entire body, which is very bad. And then you can have hemorrhagic anemia, where basically you just lose a whole lot of blood because you are hemorrhaging. So you cut yourself, or you have some kind of hemorrhage within your body where you basically don't have enough red blood cells because you're losing blood. You can also have the opposite of this, where you have polycythemias, where you basically have too many red blood cells. If you get too much red blood cells in your body, it makes your blood move a lot thicker, makes it very difficult to move, and makes your blood pressure skyrocket and cause a lot of wear and tear on your heart. Sickle cell anemia, this is kind of what it looks like. So you can see a normal red blood cell, it looks like this disc, right? And then when they get stressed out, for some reason they fold over, right? So they elongate and fold. And these do not travel through those capillaries very well. And so they cause all kinds of clots throughout the body. And if you have a bad reaction or a bad instance of this occurring, it can kill you. So it can cause clots within the brain and all over your body and cause death. So it's one of those things that they're taking very seriously, because they've had a lot of, especially athletes, basically physical stress causes these cells to do this, and so you can have a lot of athletes that just drop dead because they never knew they had it. So pretty much in every college in the United States, they require for collegiate athletes to be tested for sickle cell anemia to make sure that they are aware of this situation, and then they take the proper precautions. Some white blood cell disorders, you can have infectious mononucleosis, also known as mono. Right? Too many monocytes and lymphocytes within your body causes problems. Your spleen swells up, all kinds of issues caused by a virus in that case. You can have leukemia, where it basically originates in the bone marrow and affects the white blood cell formation, so they become part of the cancer. That's a big problem there. And then we have our blood typing. All right, so when our blood typing, basically each cell has a marker on the surface. So think of them as name tags. All right, so your blood types are basically a name tag on the outside of your cell. So any cell without these markers will be attacked. So anyone receiving blood with different markers will undergo what's called agglutination, or clotting. So your body basically tries to attack it and kill it and clot it. Of course, what happens to that blood if you're clotting it? It creates a giant clot within your body, and then you end up dying. Right, so the key is that your cells have these name tags on them, and if your body has seen the name tag before, you're good. Right? If your body is getting a new name tag into it, though, and it doesn't identify it, it's going to think it basically can't tell the difference between that and a virus, and so it tries to attack it and kill it. And by attacking it and killing it, it causes clumps and clots within your blood, and ends up killing the person who's getting the transfusion. So, one kind of cell marker on red blood cells are analyzed with ABO, and then we also have the positive or negative. So if you have type O blood, then your body isn't familiar with any markers. All right, so let's think. Let me talk real quick about this. All right, so type O blood. All right, type O just means that they have no markers on them whatsoever. So it's a recessive trait where they have the inability to create these markers. So type O blood is a recessive trait, and it means they have no markers on them whatsoever. Type A means they have an A name tag, and type B means they have a B name tag, and type AB just means they have both of those name tags. They are a codominant trait, so they show up. If you have them, then they'll both show up. Okay. So we have these name tags. We have the A name tag, the B name tag, and then we have no name tags at all. Right? And so all the blood types are just a combination of those. If you're type A, then you have an A name tag. If you're type B, you have a B name tag. If you're type AB, then you have both the A and the B name tag. And if you're type O, you don't have any name tags. Right? And so think of it from the point of seeing the name tag. Right? If your body sees a name tag it's not used to seeing, then it has a problem. Okay? So, type O has no name tags on it whatsoever. All right? So if it has no name tags, it has nothing to basically irritate any of the other bodies. So that's why type O's are called the universal donors, because type O's have no name tag, so they basically don't irritate anybody else's body, so they can always donate their blood to someone else. Their blood type does not irritate. It doesn't set off any alarms to any of the immune systems for anybody else. Type AB blood has seen type A. They have the A name tag, they have the B name tag, so they've seen all the possibilities that there are. So they're known as the universal recipient. They can receive blood from anybody, right? Because they've basically seen every single possibility. So if they get the B name tag, hey, they've seen that before. If they get the A name tag, hey, they've seen that before. If they get A and B, they've seen that before. And if they get O, it has no name tags anyway, so they're fine with that too. Okay? So that's the idea here. Now, we have to add a little bit of complexity, and that is our RH factors. So they went through, for a long period of time, they started figuring out they could do these transfers, but they realized about 1 in 25, about a quarter of the people who got transfers all of a sudden died because their body just massively rejected the blood. And they didn't understand why. And so they were doing research on this, and I think it was in the 1950s or 60s is when they figured this out, is that there was a guy who was doing research with rhesus monkeys also, and they accidentally combined human blood with rhesus monkey blood. And they realized that some of the blood clotted up and some of the blood didn't. And they didn't understand what was going on, so when they started looking more into it, they realized that there was something else on the human blood that they didn't recognize or didn't know about, and it ended up sometimes that name tag ended up reacting with the rhesus monkey blood. So there's this extra name tag that they never knew about. So that's what your RH factor, that's what your plus or your minus is all about, is about this extra name tag. Plus means you have that extra name tag. Minus means you don't have that extra name tag. All right, so think about it along the same lines of our A and B. It's just a third name tag that can be possible on there. Okay, so who can receive blood for anybody? So who has every single name tag possible, right? So it would have to be a person who has the A name tag, a person who has the B name tag, and a person who has the RH name tag. So that would be somebody who is type A, B positive, right? A type A, B positive can receive blood from any person out there because they have every single name tag possible. Right, so their AB positive is the true universal recipient. They can receive blood from any single person, okay? All right, we have the universal donor then is not just type O, but we have to take the positives and negatives in there. So the true universal donor is type O negative, right? They have absolutely no name tags at all. They don't have the A, they don't have the B, and they don't have the RH factor. They're negative for that, all right? So they don't have any name tags whatsoever. So type O negative is a universal donor. Type AB positive is a universal recipient. Now I'm going to give you some questions about this. So I'm going to ask you, can a B minus give to A minus? Can a B plus give to an AB minus? Can an O give an O minus give to an AB plus? And can an O plus give to an AB minus? All right, so I'm going to ask you lots of different questions along those lines. So think about it. Think about it from the perspective of name tags. Have you seen the name tags? Has the body seen the name tags before or not? And then how will they react? Okay? That's what I want you to look at. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is erythroblastosis. Erythroblastosis is basically any hemolytic disorder in a fetus caused by blood incompatibility. So basically this occurs when the mom is a negative and the baby's a positive. All right, again, what happens? Well, the mom's RH negative, and so the mom has never seen RH positive blood. All right, so mom has never seen that positive name tag. So when the mom's body gets exposed to it, they treat it as if it's some kind of an infection, and they go and try to attack it and kill it. Now, luckily, babies and moms don't have their blood mixed until you give birth. During that process of giving birth, they both get exposed to each other's blood. And so therefore, the mom will get exposed to the baby's blood, and then she will build up an immunity or basically set up her immune system to attack any kind of positive blood. If she's ever been exposed to positive blood before then she'll already have those antibodies there, and she'll have problems. So what happens is basically a lot of times it causes miscarriages. So this is one of the major reasons why people have miscarriages, is because of the negative positive incompatibilities. All right, so with that incompatibility, it is treatable. So, but the key is making sure that you're aware of that situation. So this is one of the times when people have problems getting pregnant. One of the first things they do is they give a blood test. All right, so they give a blood test showing to figure out if the mom's a negative and then what the dad is. All right, is the dad going to be a positive? If the dad's a positive, then they have a chance of having the positive offspring, and that might be part of the reason why they're having issues getting pregnant and having miscarriages. And so they'll do tests to see if that could be a possibility, and if there is, and if the baby is likely a positive and the mom's a negative, then what they'll do is they'll give immunosuppressants. So they'll suppress the mom's immune system, try and make sure that it doesn't attack and kill that baby as it's developing. So they'll try to keep it at bay as she goes through her pregnancy. But then she has to be very careful about getting sick and all kinds of things along those lines. So it has its issues, but it definitely is something to be dealt with. So any woman who is a type negative needs to at least be aware of this situation as a possibility, and definitely if you end up having trying to have a child with someone with a male who is a positive. So, all right. So that is our part one of our circulatory system. So please take a look over it and let me know if you have any questions.